Heidi here, and today I want to talk to you about how to attract hummingbirds when you have very little or no outdoor space. Like, I have absolutely zero outdoor space. This windowsill is really the only place that I have, as most people in their 20s. I've had maybe small patios, I've moved apartments almost every year, so this is just a way that you can, if you're a hummingbird lover, take something to go into your next and know that no matter what apartment you're in, it's gonna work for you. Before we dive into the video, I just wanted to pause here for a second to say thank you so much for watching this. This is my first YouTube video I've ever put together. I'm really excited to start making more videos. I want to put one out every week, and I just want to talk more to you guys about animals and nature and exploration. This channel is all about being a calmer, happier, and healthier person through nature, so if that's something that interests you, then please subscribe. Alright, so getting into it, I wanted to make this video because I think, like a lot of people, I think hummingbirds are pretty magical. They're just like these teeny tiny little jewels flying around, but they're not just something that's like small and pretty to look at. The way they move from a science perspective, super remarkable. They're also super smart, they're super fast, they're really fierce. Even if you aren't like super into hummingbirds just as a bird or just for the sake of seeing them or being around them, they're also a pollinator, meaning you need them to have your garden flourish. You need pollinators like birds or bees or some flies to keep your flowers blooming. I think people love to see them up close because from afar you basically just see like a flash of color, a flash of green, like what was that? Or you hear them and they have this really interesting sound that's like kind of metallic. It's like little metal like rubbing together. It produces this really cute sound, but it's almost like it comes from like a metallic bird, like a bird that's not real. And then when you get tuned into that, you really just like start to hear that everywhere and get really good at spotting these tiny little beings way up high in the tree. Anyways, one of the first published stories of people trying to attract hummingbirds came in a publication that was called Bird Lore, and this is called A Pleasant Acquaintance with a Hummingbird, and it's from Dr. Clifton Hodge from Clark University in 1899, and Bird Lore was this publication that came out that was affiliated with Audubon. In the nature study course of the summer school, a little time was devoted to the honeybee, life of the hive, care and management, and especially the work of bees in cross-pollination of flowers and fruits. But to crown the event, in the most exquisite way possible, a hummingbird flew into an open window, and darting, unafraid, in and out among the noisy groups of 50 or more busy people, it rifled the various flowers with which the laboratory was decorated. In closing the windows for the night, it was accidentally imprisoned, and on visiting the room next morning, Sunday, I found it still humming about the flowers. Thinking that it might be a female with nestlings awaiting its return, I gently placed an insect net over it with the intention of passing it out the window. It proved, however, on closer inspection, to be a young male, so I thought it could do no harm to keep it a day or two for acquaintance sake. No sooner was my finger, with a drop of honey on it, brought within reach, than it thrust its bill and long tongue out through the net and licked up the honey with evident delight. Releasing it from the net, I dropped honey onto a number of the flowers, sprinkling water over them at the same time, and it immediately began feasting and drinking. As it flew about, it taught me its bright little chirp, evidently a note of delight and satisfaction. So there's more, and again, I'll link that below, but I thought this account just really highlights a lot of the very personal experiences each person goes through. As for myself, I've always loved hummingbirds, and one of my favorite vacations was when I was little and my family stayed in a family's guest house in Arizona. It was kind of like an Airbnb before Airbnb was a thing, and they had all of these hummingbirds on their property. Arizona is a really great place for hummingbirds, and one of the things they let us do was to sit with the feeders in our lap and just be very still, and it only took a few minutes before all these birds started coming down and drinking pretty much right from our lap and from our hands, and it just, after that, was something that I could not get enough of. I mean, my family had a feeder right by the kitchen window, right by the dining table that I could see, and I grew up in San Diego. But in the last year, they became more than just an animal that I really liked, and they became something that really lifted me up and encouraged me. Here's some footage of me back in Sacramento, saying bye to the hummingbirds and talking about a little bit more of what they mean to me. Hi, this is Heidi. Right now I'm going to be trying to record the birds that come to my feeder. So next week I'm moving, and while I'm really excited for this move and the newness that it will bring, what I'm most sad to leave is all the birds that have started to come to my feeder and I've really gotten to know. The next apartment I have doesn't have any outdoor space, so it's going to be a challenge to hang up bird feeders, and on the days when I was here that I got to work from home or the weekends, one of the things that brought me the most joy was to go out and sit on the couch with a tea or something else like that and watch the hummingbirds zooming to the feeder and away from the feeder and back again. And actually, because they have different markings, you can start to tell them apart. So my husband and I would sit and watch and came up with different names for ones that we saw return, and they really are like another member of the family. They return every single day. We make homemade sugar water for them every few days, clean out the feeder, watch them, and I've broken down into tears. I've been so excited to see them before. They just really help to boost my mood. Enough of that. Now let's get to the how-to part. How do you attract hummingbirds to your yard or to your apartment or to wherever you are? Basically, hummingbirds need access to food, they need access to shelter, and they need to be safe. So the more of these three things we're able to provide to them, the more likely you're going to be able to attract hummingbirds. I will say that even after setting all these things up, even if you do everything perfectly, it does take a lot of patience. When I first put out a feeder, it took about a month or two of consistently keeping fresh, clean food in the feeder before some hummingbirds found it. And hummingbirds have really good memories and often will come back to the same feeder year after year, like the ones that migrate. If they're passing through your area, they can know within a few feet of where that food source is and will return year after year. So I'll do this in steps. Step 1 is evaluate your space. Get to know what you have to work with. Even before that, or as the first part of that, what you have to do is to get to know and research if any hummingbirds even live or migrate to the area where you live. Hummingbirds are not found in every part of the world. They live exclusively in North, Central, and South America, about from Alaska and down to Chile. And There are more than 300 types total, and some of them just have these beautiful long tails or giant hooked bills or different gleaming colors on their head and throat. So the varieties are stunning, but most of those birds do live in Central and South America. If, like me, you live in the United States, you'll see maybe roughly like 12 to 15 types depending on what state you're in. So look up what types of hummingbirds come through your area. For me, I live in San Francisco, so I see Annas, I see black-chinned, I see Rufus, I see Allens, and I see Costa. If you live in the Southwest, like Arizona or Texas or New Mexico, you'll probably see more hummingbirds than that. If you lived on the eastern United States, or if you live in the Midwest, you may only run into one type, and that's the iconic ruby-throated hummingbird. So, once you know what species are possible to see, check what types are year-round, like live there through all the months, or what types might just come for part of the year or pass by during migration. So again, in San Francisco, for example, Anna's hummingbirds live here year-round, while Allen's hummingbirds, which are more of the orangey hummingbirds, they usually nest in the Bay Area. But they usually fly south to Southern California or Mexico for the winter. Now I say usually and sometimes because in more urban environments, a lot more Allen's hummingbirds have been choosing to stay put all year. The next part of step 1 is to do some reconnaissance on your property and your surrounding area. Where do they currently hang out, or where have you seen them in the past, or is there a certain plant or tree that they've been sitting in or hovering around? And once you do that, you can look up what plants are these. Are they ones where they're getting a lot of flowers or food from, or are there ones that they're just hanging out in? And where are the gaps, and how can I add in more of what they need? And also then, if there's one particular area where you've seen them a lot, then consider adding any feeders or landscaping close by to that area, because then they'll probably come and adopt whatever system you've put in place very quickly. And then another thing that is super important about this is to be aware of what types of pets are around. So if you have cats that you let outside, or that are outdoor cats, or your neighbors have outdoor cats, then attracting hummingbirds is honestly not something you want to do. So I would really encourage you, if you have outdoor cats, do not put up hummingbird feeders and do not try to attract hummingbirds. Alright, now step 2 is to give them food. These guys are really food motivated, and that's because hummingbirds have a crazy high metabolism. They're constantly flying, their wings are flapping so fast, and they're so small that they're just burning off energy constantly. So they need to be constantly drinking in high sugar intake to keep up with their fast flying and to keep going. So hummingbirds drink nectar from flowers, and they also eat protein like fruit flies and small spiders and things like that. But please never try to feed them insects. That could really hurt them because they only can handle certain types. For example, ants they have like an exoskeleton, a hard outside surface, and hummingbirds are not equipped to process or digest something like that. So the way you can help them to get their source of protein is simply by making sure to eliminate any chemical or harmful pesticides that you're using around in your yard. A few spider webs or insects around your yard is good for your yard and good for the hummingbirds. Plus, they need sticky spider web to use to secure their nests, so they kind of use the spider web to glue it together and keep it on the branch so it doesn't fly off since it's so small. The most ideal way to give hummingbirds food is to plant hummingbird-friendly plants all around your yards. Plants that the hummingbirds like, that are flowering, and that are also native to your region. So plants that naturally would grow in the wild in the place that you live. Red and orange, as you might have heard, does attract hummingbirds, so they really like red and orange flowers, and they like ones that are kind of in the shape of their bill, since the way that they get their food is to insert their bill and to lap up the nectar. There's certain flowers that have evolved alongside hummingbird beak shape to deliver the best meal to the hummingbird. There's some other flowers that are not that suited to hummingbirds. So flowers like roses, lilies, daffodils, tulips, you can think about their size and their shape, and there's just not a real way that hummingbirds can get the nectar out of these flowers. They're adapted for different pollinators. Some of the plants that hummingbirds generally like, and this is just a generalized list because it is way too much to go into just in this video, are bee balm or desert honeysuckle. According to UC Davis, hummingbirds are drawn to colorful native flowering plants that have no scent, such as bladderpod, hummingbird sage, serpentine columbine, and vine hill manzanita. I think those are probably some flowers that would be good for California, since that's where UC Davis is located. If you are trying to attract a hummingbird that only visits your area for select parts of the year, another thing to note is what time of year the flower that you have will bloom, because it might be red, it might be tube-shaped, it might be look like a great option, but if you're trying to attract a hummingbird that only comes in like February, but the flower blooms generally in the summer, then that plant is not going to help you to attract hummingbirds. Overall, it's hard to make recommendations for a specific set of plants for you to get, because it is so widely dependent on where you live. The best thing to do is to identify what pollinator-friendly plants you can get that are native to your area, and to do this I'd recommend just going to a local plant nursery and speaking with someone that works there to get some advice, and just familiarize yourself with the type of native plants that that place sells and what could be good for hummingbirds. So that said, if you'd like to see a future video that goes more into native plants for hummingbirds in your region, please let me know in a comment. Then, moving on, if like me, plants are not an option for you, even though they're the best way to go, you may want to buy a hummingbird feeder. And hummingbird feeder is by no means a bad route. It's just one that it's maybe a little more like hummingbirds eating fast food. I'm sure you've seen hummingbird feeders in a lot of yards. There's so many types and shapes, but I like the classic one. And then I'd say also look for a bright color. It doesn't have to be everywhere, but having a bright red or orange color somewhere near where the hummingbird needs to go to drink is super helpful. Having a little piece on the feeder that allows them to rest and perch while they drink instead of just hover is a great thing to do. And then it needs, of course, at least one place for them to drink from. If you're just starting out, also, I recommend getting one that is pretty small in size, just so that as you're getting used to giving fresh juice, making sure it's really clean, you don't want to have a big one that is going to have so much juice that it doesn't run out before it needs to be filled, and then it goes bad, and then you could really be harming these birds. I also recommend starting with just one feeder, and then ramping up to more as you see what type, like how many birds are coming, are they crowding this feeder. Also, as I mentioned earlier, if you're like me and you have 0 outdoor space, then you can still get a hummingbird feeder that can work for you. Multiple companies make different feeders that attach in different ways straight to a window or a windowsill. And so check out my next video. It might be up here in a box, where I ordered one from Amazon and it arrived and I unboxed it and I tried it out, and I'll tell you my thoughts on it and if I'd recommend that product. Once you've purchased a hummingbird feeder, it might be tempting to pick up one of the bright red pre-made juice bottles that you'll inevitably see. I just say, before you pick up one of those, wait and don't do it. It's healthier for the birds and it's less expensive for you if you just make your own juice. And so I'll also have a video up soon, again once it's available. I'll put it up here, you can click on that, where I walk you through how to make hummingbird juice and how to store it. So definitely check that out before you start filling up your feeders. Now we're on to step 3, and this step is kind of optional. So far, if you looked up that where you live definitely can have hummingbirds, if you've looked around your yard to see if there are any existing hummingbirds and where they hang out, and if you've either added flowers to your garden or yard or patio that can attract hummingbirds, or bought hummingbird feeder and made sugar water for it and put it out, then basically you're done. All you need to do now is to be patient and to wait for the birds to discover your new area. But if you want to give them an even better experience, step 3 is to add some fun ingredients, some accessories to your yard that can just help to attract the hummingbirds and give them some additional stuff that they enjoy. For this, part 1 would be perches. The more shrubs and trees you have, the more seating options the hummingbirds have, just to rest their wings, because they really need their rest. And they need a place to sleep, and they go into this semi-hibernation state when they're asleep, so they can store a lot of energy. One option is just more landscaping of those types of plants, but another cute option is to buy or make little hummingbird swings. And that usually just involves a small dowel, some wiring, little red beads is something that's popular, and I love these. They look adorable and like a safe and non-intrusive way that you can take some really fantastic pictures of the birds if you know right where they're gonna land. Maybe I'll make one for a future video. Please let me know if that would be something you would like. Another option is water. Hummingbirds don't generally need any help finding a place to drink water. I mean, they get most of their water from when they're drinking their food, but they might appreciate a place to take a bath or a shower. So you may see hummingbirds fly through a fine mister or sprinklers to clean off their feathers. And so if you add a mister to your yard that puts out just like a very fine mist, that's something that hummingbirds do enjoy. You can also help them use an existing bird bath you might have just by making sure that there's a shallow area, just like about an inch deep, or less that isn't too slippery at the bottom. It has like a rough surface so that they can land and have something to grip to. Okay, another one is even taking care of your plants in a way that produce even more flowers. The better you take care of your flowers, the more you can attract hummingbirds. So just learning what fertilizer to use, pruning them the proper way, pinching off dead flowers and dead leaves, or practicing pinching of the flower plant in general to promote more growth. It's going to be great because you're going to have more flowers in your yard. It's going to look more full in general. And then the more flowers there are, the more hummingbird food there is for the hummingbirds to enjoy. Once you've followed all 3 of these steps, step 1, evaluate your space. Step 2, give them food. And step 3, adding other fun ingredients. Then the name of the game is to just be patient. If you keep at it, you're gonna get some birds coming to you. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching my first ever video. Your support means the world to me. Stay tuned for more like this, and please have a wonderful day. Heidi out.